I think we know who plays where. It's pretty obvious this keeps Vientos at third. Pete obviously is playing first base. No surprise there. But how do you see the top of this lineup shaking out? It feels like the Mets have a couple different ways they can write this thing, where to me, the obvious is Lindor leading off again because he was just phenomenal there. And Juan Soto, you want him to get as many as bats as you can. You bat him behind Lindor at number 2. But how do you, Joe, balance the power that the Mets have in this lineup after that? Obviously headlined by both Vientos and Pete.
I agree with you, Connor. The top 2 should be Francisco Lindor, Juan Soto. You want your
every day.
You want your 2 best hitters getting the most plate appearances, and I know math, and the leadoff hitter and the second hitter get more plate appearances than everyone going down the lineup. I think the 3-4 I can be flexible with. I think it is some combination of Pete and Mark Vientos. Whether that is, do you want to bat Alonso third as a semblance of protection for Soto and then Vientos after him, or do you want Vientos third with Alonso kind of protecting him a little bit? But I mean, Connor, let's call it what it is. We're debating
first world
something.
Problems.
Yeah, first world problems here. We're debating something that I think, and it's not really a debate, but there was on Twitter, that's for sure. Either way, I think the lineup is set up really well. For me, I'm going Lindor, Soto, Vientos, Alonso, Nimmo, Alvarez, and then I'm talking the DH platoon, and then McNeil and the center field platoon, and that's how I would do the lineup. What is kind of your full look at it?
I'm right there with you. I think that when it comes down to it, you're just going into the season, Lindor and Soto are written in ink at the top there, and then you can kind of play the analytical matchups between Vientos and Pete in the 3 and 4. And then the 5 to me is so interesting because it's just, what Brandon Nimmo are we getting this year? Are we getting the Brandon Nimmo that wants to kind of, drive 25 plus home runs out of the ballpark? Or are we getting a Brandon Nimmo that wants to sit there and take 12 pitches and getting back to being an on-base machine? Because then you kind of have this weird luxury of having 2 separate lineups built into one. And what I mean by that is, of course, Lindor, Soto, say Vientos, and Pete. But then do you kind of start the lineup all over again by having a leadoff style hitter in Nimmo at 5, a guy that, say, against lefties, well, it doesn't matter. Just say a platoon of Winker and Marte at 6, guys that can drive Nimmo in or move him across the base paths. And then what Francisco Alvarez are we getting this year? Because if we're getting the Francisco Alvarez that hits 27 home runs, well, I want Alvarez to be able to clear, the Nimmos, the Martes, and the Winkers of the world. That's why I call it 2 lineups. It feels like you're having the top of the lineup all over again after you clear the first 4 guys. What an amazing situation to be in with the Mets. And maybe I'm just being optimistic and projecting the best of Brandon Nimmo, Jesse Winker, Starling Marte, and Francisco Alvarez. But I mean, Joe, why can't you dream big right now when you look at the top 6 or 7 of this order?
And it isn't wild to think Brandon Nimmo is going to bounce back. It's not insane to think 23-year-old Francisco Alvarez is going to play maybe a little closer to the 2023 version of Alvarez. And the DH situation, little in flux. I think obviously who you have with Winker and Marte, like the physical people, but what Jesse Winker are you going to get? Are you getting the guy that prior to 2024 had to take a minor league deal and seemed like he was almost on his way out of the pros, and he goes on and has a great year for Washington, gets traded to the Mets, has a good playoff run, and earns that next contract? But ultimately, Connor, I think this is probably the deepest this Mets lineup has been since 2006.
I agree.
I can't think of a time any more recent. So a splendid job by David Stearns and this Mets front office for putting this lineup together. And I think, as you said, it's our real first world problems if we're complaining, oh no, how are we going to make room for all these guys and make it make sense?